Champions, episode 2 of SoW-Com. Cheers for being here. Garel's up first, 650 rage cost, nice and low, and a really well-rounded debuff. So even though it doesn't come with a damage coefficient, it is going to be really useful for increasing your damage and reducing the damage you take. So it reduces the defense of the target's infantry and cavalry by 200%, which is quite high, and it also reduces the attack of their spear bow for another 200%. And all troop types health by 250%, which is actually one of the higher debuffs, I believe. So really useful for knocking some stats off of people, especially those that don't have their lord with them. 200% and 250% is going to be a fair chunk of the stats that they have in that team. It can't stack, and there's a duration of 4 seconds with a cooldown of 12 seconds, so all in all fairly standard. But yeah, really quite a well-balanced skill, and potentially really useful. As always, they haven't specified a hitbox, but you can expect from Garel that it'll be single line. If you can position yourself well and affect the right targets, or as many targets as possible, then it's going to help you out a lot, especially considering that those debuffs affect all your allies as well. So everyone hitting on those infantry cav is not going to have to worry about 200% of their defense, and everyone taking hits from their spear bow is going to be, surviving that bit longer, which could make the difference, especially in a, large scale battle. As far as passives go, he's got spear attack and spear defense by 150%. So, not the most amazing, but definitely not the worst, especially for spears that tend to get amongst it a bit. They're mid-range, so they stay out of it a little, but they're easy enough to catch. They're not bows. Chris, and I probably would like to spend a little bit more time on him, but I'll try and do my best here. So, rage cost of 850, which is not the lowest, not the highest. It does tend to go off a fair amount though, because he is in and amongst the action. Deals skill damage of 800, which is mid to mid-high. It is delayed by 3 seconds, but it creates an AoE region, so they've defined the hitbox here, and it lasts for 4 seconds on that location. Now, that can be detrimental, but it could also be really useful. If you've got some people withdrawing, or if you're trying to kite the enemy, then getting that skill off and then backing away, it gives you a break, basically, because when they pass through it or when they're in it, there's a 75% chance to apply hesitation, which basically renders them unable to use skills at all. So even if they've got the rage and they want to do it, they're just not able to use the skills. It also inflicts Nightmare, which increases the skill damage taken by 30%. Now that's all on a max target of 5, but that's quite high also compared to some others, so it's really a useful skill. And if you couple it with the right people, which isn't hard considering how many teams are going to be around you for most of the match, it's going to really increase the AoE damage in that AoE area, as well as single target skills. It's just a good bonus. So he's also got a passive increase to infantry attack and infantry health, which is, the best combo or the most sought after. He's available to everyone, and he's potentially a really good option for Lord. Depending on what teams you're building, he is so useful and fairly versatile, covering a few different skill sets, that he's probably going to be able to be worked into a lot of teams. As my alliance knows, this is my number one bay. Miranda is just generally a really useful champion game, but this is, Siege of Winterfell, so let's talk about that. Rage cost of 600, quite low, not the lowest, but pretty close to it. It deals skill damage, coefficient of 960, not the highest, but pretty close to it. Also increases the defense and health of spearmen by 150, cannot stack for 7 seconds, so the duration is much longer than the standard 4, and cooldown of 12 seconds. The main thing to note with Miranda is that her skill, once again, is akin to her training grounds or werewood skill. So it's a cone effect, and it hits there's no limit to the targets that it can affect, as it isn't specified. So if you're in a combat situation where there's multiple enemies and, a whole army, then she's able to hit every single one of them with that 960, which puts her right up there as far as damage dealers go. Couple that with her passives, which are, of course, Spear Attack, Spear Defense, and Spear Health, all of 150. This makes her a really appealing option. She effectively doesn't have a downside. She's got a large hitbox, she's got high damage, she's got low rage, she's got all the buffs you want. So yeah, she doesn't come with some of these other fancy skill effects, but really, you're not going to want to stack, say, three champs that are only there for skills. Although I do think skills are really important and versatility among those teams is important, you still need your stats and you still need to be putting damage on. So as far as things go, excellent option. No faults whatsoever, which I'm glad to say because, once again, big fan. Hans is up next, and I'm going to resist the urge to compare her with Annie because I think she has her own role, as much as she is a healer, comparably to Annie, who is a healer. So her rage cost is 800. She heals wounded troops, which you've got to watch out for because there is a difference between wounded and dead. With a healing coefficient of 1000, which is the highest in game. It is in the next 7 seconds though, so it's not necessarily going to save you in a clutch situation. It may go off and not get in the effect in time to do what you want it to do. So it grants troops an effect which increases defense by 125%. It can stack, but I debate whether it'll stack that much, considering it's a 12-second cooldown and only a 3-second effect. So I'm not sure exactly how it would stack other than other defensive increases to bow. Now, bow probably aren't going to need a lot of defense anyway. You know, you're going to choose them for maneuverability and range and try and keep them out of fighting as far as taking damage goes. So debatable how worthwhile that is. She does increase bow attack and bow health passively by 150%. Now, in saying that they don't need defense and health, it's not a bad thing to have a bit of, because there is AoE skills, or there's, you know, skills that are going to pass through others and hit you, even if you are keeping them out of range of their melee. So having a little bit of health is not a bad thing. Having more attack is a really good thing for a bow team. Not all bow commanders have an attack increase, and considering you're probably not going to have your lord with your bow team, she does actually sort of make the grade, you know. You wouldn't necessarily think that a support character should be on an attack team, but it's got potential. And so does this bird. Lana is pretty nice, actually. Sorry, I was just admiring. Rage cost of 500, lowest in game. Grants your troops enraged, increasing attack damage by 45%. Now that's a big thing to note. So it's attack damage, it's not an attack increase, which is potentially a lot more effective. Since when you increase attack, you then have to take into consideration whatever formula is applied, you know, so that's including mitigation from defense and health. Whereas attack damage increase should mean that there is a direct and effective increase to the damage you actually do at the end of the day. She also has Tranquility. Tranquility is a really useful skill, and I don't think it should be discounted at all or in any way. If you've got a lot of Annies around, it may not be the most sought after because she possibly will cover you enough. It's only got a 75% chance to trigger though, which is reasonably high. And you know, even if it's triggering on that team 3/4 of the time, it's still going to help a lot because it removes debuffs and it grants immunity to debuffs. So not only is it going to remove ones that are already applied, it's going to protect you from ones that are coming. And of course, being one of the Zhao's angels, she has all three passive increases to stats: cavalry attack, cavalry health, and cavalry defense, 150%. Great way to get stats back into a team, especially if it doesn't have lords. So yeah, all round, not a lot to fault there. She's a good option, apart from the no damage coefficient, but I can forgive. I can forgive. Alright, guys, thanks for coming along for episode 2. Keep in mind we've got a giveaway going on right now, so if you like, comment below with your kingdom number and your in-game name. A little something else would be nice. I'd really like to discuss some of these things. This is all just my own views, so a bit of input would be much appreciated. Cheers, guys.